Hi everyone, it's Judy. Welcome back to the OnTrack podcast. Today we have a special guest who's Jeremie Waller of Quantel Laser by Lumibird in Bozeman, Montana. Recently I got to meet Jeremie, who's become or is one of our Altium 365 beta users, and he was telling me about some of his experiences, and I thought you would enjoy learning from somebody that recently adopted that platform and what it's been like for his multinational team. So lean in, enjoy. I'll see you on the other side.
Welcome to Altium's OnTrack podcast, where we talk to leaders about PCB design, tackling subjects ranging from schematic capture all the way to the manufacturing floor. I'm your host, Judy Warner. Please listen in every week and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and all your favorite podcast apps. And be sure to check out the show notes at altium.com/podcast, where you can find great resources and multiple ways to connect with us on social media.
Collaboration is critical to success. With us working remotely, it's more important than ever to convey design intent, review and comment, and iterate on mechanical, electrical, and software design features to get the perfect balance of user experience and form, all while improving manufacturing performance and yields. Working from anywhere and connecting with anyone has to be made easier. So at Altium, we're meeting the challenge head on. Right now, OnTrack podcast listeners have an exclusive, significant discount on Altium Designer with Altium 365 subscription. And to make this even easier, we're offering extended interest-free payment terms and a $400 bonus if you refer a collaborator so they get this deal too. So click the link below in the show notes to get your discount code now.
Well, hi, Jeremie. Welcome. I'm so glad you could join us. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Hi, Judy. That's great to be here.
Well, we've spent a little bit of time together in the last couple of weeks, and it's been really fun getting to know you and sort of organically hearing the story of your multinational team there. So why don't you start out by introducing yourself, giving us a little thumbnail of your background and a little bit about Lumibird.
Okay. Well, I'm an electrical engineer. I'm actually from Minnesota, grew up there, and came out to Montana as a transplant back in the late 90s, so 98, and graduated from Montana State University. So that tends to attract a lot of engineers and physicists and things into the area. So for the last 20 years after graduating in 2001, I've been working for Quantel Laser, and it's been a fantastic company to work for. And we build and design and manufacture solid-state laser systems, mostly in Bozeman. And they're the high-powered pulse type that not quite your laser pointer type. These are the type that really shock and awe, in my opinion, and are fun to play with. So they're solid-state. We also have other entities in France that are scientific. And we have a lot of applications in industrial and defense type markets. A lot of OEM or original equipment manufacturers use our stuff and do really cool things. So that's a little bit about Lumibird. We've been growing a lot. We've even got a team in Canada that we're pretty excited to have on board, and we've got some Australians in there, potentially 3 locations of designers in France. So our team is growing, and it's pretty exciting.
These lasers, the shock and awe, can you give us a sense of what that is? I think every engineer would like to know about the cool lasers a little bit more.
Well, yeah, they're the type, they're class 4 lasers, so they definitely, something that the State Department pays attention to, because all of our lasers can technically be used for defense type applications, but that doesn't mean all of them are. So our lasers aren't like the huge megajoule style that you might have heard about or can look up online that's going on in France. These are monstrous lasers for nuclear physics, but we've got some that's used for Lidar applications, so atmospheric characterization, if it's 532 nanometer wavelengths, so we have a base wavelength of 1064 because they're ND-YAG lasers, and we could double them and triple them and do all kinds of fun things with this. But the visible one's neat because it's brilliant green, makes a lot of noise when you focus it down, and create a nice microplasma, and you can hear the air just pop. So it's kind of fun. They use that for laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy for doing spectral analysis of elements. It's a lot of fun. So here you go. This is our newest project, the Merion at it's 100 millijoules at 400 hertz, and it's an infrared wavelength, so you can't see it. But what it's doing is it's basically breaking down the air. So I've got a short video. I'll just let you watch it.
That's cool. That's cool. What's the application?
So in this case, we're just focusing the beam. There's just so much energy concentrated at the waist of the beam that it's one of the laser engineers stuck a ceramic piece in the way of the beam right about where it's focused. And it just, the contaminants in the air from hitting that piece of ceramic just is in the air. And so it sees all that material, and it's just causing all these little microplasma bursts of air explosions. So it's just fun to play around.
Really
so we have fun in the lab.
Yeah, that's what I pictured exactly. Well, thank you for showing that to me. Well, recently Jeremie reached out to me about starting a virtual user group, which we'll talk about later in the podcast. But that's how I got to know Jeremie. And just as a matter of course, during the user group he started there in Bozeman, Montana, virtually to a couple different areas. He was talking about his experience that I actually wasn't aware of, which was that he had been a beta user for Altium 365, and it was a really interesting story that I thought our listeners would enjoy hearing. So, Jeremie, what initially interested you and the work you're doing with your team on Altium 365?
Well, through the years, I guess, we've been Altium users for a long time, since the Vault started, back when it was called the Satellite Vault. And so we've been kind of going along with this with you for a long time. And we've experimented with all of our different locations in Lumibird with collaborating. And it's always been difficult. There's lots of reasons why it's been, we've had successes and failures, but it's always been difficult for just time, 8 hours time differential, language barriers. We designed things a little bit differently. We had to connect through a VPN type connection. So back in 2017, our colleagues over in Les Ulis, a suburb of Paris, switched over to Altium. And so we saw it as an opportunity to or Altium Designer, I should say. They didn't have a Vault. And so we thought, this is an opportunity to share libraries. So the initial idea was just to really share our component libraries, which I think every designer would agree takes a lot of time to set up and organize and manage, to make it quicker and easier the next time. So we wanted to share that idea. And I think it was at Altium Live 2018, sitting down with Mohammed Mateen and talking to him about an idea to get 2 different vaults set up where the people in France could use our vault for the components but store their designs locally. And we went and experimented that for quite some time. And you guys even teased a little bit in Altium Live, Altium Live 2018, what about this A360 or Altium 365 might be. And in 2019 at Altium Live, you officially launched it in some ways. And so somebody had mentioned that, I don't even remember who, but somewhere along in the Altium Live 2018, I heard him say, well, we're taking experimental users to transfer or rehost their Concord Pro on-premise to the cloud at some point. And so sometime in January, February this year, we started talking to, I asked Jeff Jones, our account manager, for help, said, I heard this, is it real? Can we do this? And so we started really thinking about moving it into the cloud for various reasons. Because Concord Pro on-premise was working okay for us, but it had some glitches. We weren't able to, it might have been our own server and how we had it set up, but going to the cloud just sounded like the right thing to do. And at the same time, we're also getting a new team in Canada over in Ottawa set up, and they're growing and they're excited. And so we wanted to get them involved. And this would have been the easiest way, rather than create this big web of VPN connections that are problematic in themselves, to get to work on this cloud. So I got to talk to Abe Kalecki. If I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, Abe, I'm sorry. But he started demoing this product to us, and we were really happy about it. The guys in France were super excited about it because it was working faster and better. And then everybody knows that due to the virus that came out here, that we've been dealing with globally, on March 17th, my inbox pretty much exploded. I was supposed to be in spring break, but we were going to go as a family to Utah and see some national parks. But instead, we canceled that, and it's probably a good thing, because our friends in France had some stay-at-home orders on that Tuesday. And that's when we learned that they couldn't go to work. We weren't really prepared to handle that. So there was a lot of designers in France specifically that were no longer able to design. So
Jeremie, what on that March 17th day, when your office in France got sent home, and it sounds like maybe they didn't know they were going home and they weren't really equipped for it. Like, what sort of challenges were they facing that made your email start blowing up like that?
Well, the need to find a solution fast. Everybody just knew that having a bunch of engineers sitting around not designing things is expensive, and it's not going to help us get our products out on time. So a lot of the issues we were dealing with is just trying to find a solution that was secure and that we could trust, that would allow them to gain access to the databases where their projects were stored without compromising our security details. So the VPN setup was just not working. We had all kinds of private computers that were trying to log in, and we didn't want to allow that, because we've got restricted projects and things that we don't want getting out into the outside world. So the A365 was just a natural fit. So after talking to management and seeing if they were okay with this, I turned to Abe and asked him and his deployment team if it was possible for us to move this up and move faster on it. And he said, no problem. So we immediately went, literally that Friday, we supplied him a backup of the database of ours, which is rather large. There's a lot of components, lots of projects. There's over 10 years worth of projects on this. And they did a bunch of tests and checked for data integrity and prepared for basically a rehosting. So Friday after, this was March 20th, I suppose. On Friday, we gave them the final backup, and the deployment team worked all weekend and into the early next week. Abe kept us fully updated the whole time, and we were patiently waiting, I think. But they ended up launching it on Wednesday, I think the 25th. So pretty much a full week went by, and we lost about 3 days of design time. But the amount of work
you said, 8 to 10 years of component data.
It was huge.
Migrated over, so that's a big job.
It is a huge job, and it's, I think, a testament to the Altium 365 deployment team, because I really was a bit nervous, secretly in the background, because we've had to rebuild our vault before. You can ask Charlie Yap, one of your fantastic application engineers. He's superb and has helped us before while we went through different conversions of our vault. So in the back of my mind, I'm expecting to hear some bad news, like we can't convert half your data or something like that. But instead, that Wednesday, he said, it's live, go check it out, test it, see what it looks like. And I did. I had a colleague over in France doing the same thing to make sure it worked for him. And we were able to turn it on for the company that evening. And we haven't had any problems since. it's amazing that it just turned on and it works seamlessly. So, and there was even improvements. Like I said, we had some quirky behavior in our on-premise version that just disappeared, and so it makes me wonder if we had something set up incorrectly on our local servers. But right now,
what were those quirky issues that you were having before that seemed to get cleaned up and after the transition?
well, the web review, that was one of the fun things that, I told you we initially got into this because we really wanted components for everybody to share, and it's kind of turned into more, actually. You guys have kind of opened our eyes up to a little more possibilities since then. And so the web review is one of those things that we really saw promise for, but it seemed like it wasn't working for us quite as well in some ways. And some of the graphics on some of our designs weren't really showing up on our on-premise version very well. And so, we were crossing our fingers and hoping that maybe that was related to our deployment of the server and not so much, an Altium bug. So when we brought it up to A365, it was definitely a pleasant surprise to see that everything displays well. The collaboration with the teams is awesome with the commenting. So that's when you're doing, again, across borders and teams doing collaborative design reviews. What else are you collaborating on that had an impact that sort of surprised you beyond the component management aspect? Yeah, that has been the fun part is, we had the web review has been amazing, and it's really changed our group. We've got, just this morning, we had a group meeting, a global meeting with like 10 engineers just this morning. It always shifts between 10, 20 people show up. And we go over, and we can do design reviews and that sort of thing live. But the sent to manufacture was one that we went over this morning with the rest of the team because, one of the guys I work with at Quantel Laser in Bozeman here and I were just talking to our materials management yesterday and basically training them. So because we're on the cloud and, everybody thinks that Altium is for electrical engineers, but as you found out, I invited other people to our user group meeting last week that were not electrical engineers. There was management personnel, there was a mechanical engineer, there's firmware engineers. So our world of Altium users is expanding rapidly, and we're trying to figure out how to get everybody on board properly or show them what this tool can do. So we did the materials management. The send to manufacture button is really cool. We've already used it with our friends over in Royal Circuits. We've shared it with them. And Amber, if you're watching.
Yeah. So how did that go? How was that received? What did that look like? How did Royal Circuits, accept those? How did that go?
I think it went really well. Jason, my colleague at work, he said he's the one that sent it to him. At first, he told me that they basically said, well, what's this? I don't want to learn anything. This looks complicated. But within like a minute, he'd explained what it is. And the next thing is they thought, wow, this is really cool. So the send to manufacture is really fun, how you can share it with them. They can download the files they need. So we were teaching our materials management crew just yesterday how to do just that, how to log in. You don't have to have a license. You can log into the browser interface, find the project that's been released, and send it to whoever you need to build this board or quote it, and they can actually comment and download the files. They can share it again. And as we found out just yesterday, if they share it to somebody maybe you don't want them to share to, you can actually revoke that. And it looks like you can remove that person from the workspace. So it's just creating a separate workspace. So I think that's pretty exciting. It's just kind of neat to come up with these new ideas that are kind of changing how we think about, how we collaborate and who we're collaborating with. So I think it's exciting, personally.
Well, it's super exciting for me to hear it from you, feet on the ground. With your, say, firmware engineers, your material managers, your fabricators, what is their feedback to you as far as how things are on their end?
Well, so far, I think it's been positive. It's something new, as you know, like anytime you introduce something new and this different, there's going to be some resistance, and that's just the way it's going to be. But I don't think that's what we're seeing right now. It's excitement over a new tool and a different way of doing things. And now we just have to figure out how does that fit in with our existing processes, and how do we have to change anything to make this work out with our formal ECO procedure, of release to production. So I think there's been a really good reaction. I know the Canadian friends up in Ottawa are super excited to join. I'm really happy to see everybody getting excited about this. It's part of my drive to continue to try to move our company using your products. I mean, I really do see Altium as a partner at this point, as opposed to just somebody I'm buying software from, because you guys have helped us in so many ways kind of change how we're doing things in a better way over the last 2 years. The collaboration is amazing. So I see a lot of good coming from this.
That's great. Music to my old manufacturing ears. Jeremie, you mentioned, it sounds like you were on a call this morning, you'd mentioned that as you sort of being the lead at helping adoption within Quantel and Lumibird, that you sort of, host these, review meetings or provide training or insight. Can you tell us about what your thinking was there, what those meetings are like, and the value they're providing?
Okay. Well, I think you were probably the inspiration for the beginning of this, because back in the Altium Live 2018, the one thing I noticed coming back, Jason Smith, the guy I mentioned earlier, and I were the only ones that got to go from our company to Altium Live 2018. And when we came back and we're reflecting on that experience, I think we noticed our excitement levels. We were really excited about what we do for a living, what other people that we met were doing for a living, the types of things they're building. We're excited about the things we learned, the people we met. And so, that theme of yours, that learn, connect, and get inspired, I think really resonated with me personally. So it was about that time we decided to, and I can't even remember how I got this started, but we started pulling together a team, and it was small at the beginning, and it's growing slowly, of designers around Lumibird, because we've been stuck in our little boxes. For the most part, we've just been over here in Bozeman doing our thing. And the guys over in Leslie Lease are doing their awesome stuff. And the guys up in Canada are assembling their team. And so we've got these different teams all over the world that are doing really cool stuff and really smart people. And so we're pulling everybody together once a week in our meetings to kind of extend your theme, that whole learn, connect, and get inspired. So we do some admin type stuff, talking about policies and how we're going to converge our ideas, because now that we can collaborate, we have to slowly converge all of the way we design so that it's a little more commonality of how we do things. And so it's about learning how they do things over there, how we do things over here, and how everybody has got, electronics is for the most part a universal language, right? So everybody, regardless of what language you speak, can still understand it. It's just, but in the design state, you can have different ways of displaying resistors, even from a box to a zigzaggy pattern and anything in between. But on the other side, we always have learning aspect in there too, and try to show each other something new that we just found this last week, a new feature that Altium released that we just figured out. We watch, we might invite guests in the future, that would be willing to speak about certain topics. It's also a Q&A session for junior engineers and whatnot to talk to other engineers and see, has anybody got a solution for this? So that meeting once a week has been really great, because it's kind of some really trivial things, like even paper size. I think I told you before. Early on, I was talking to Julian over in France, and he's like, we're talking about the aspect ratio of a document. I'm like, what do you mean? What kind of paper do you have over there? So there's just weird stuff. It's been really fun working with people from everywhere else and finding out how everybody's doing the same thing slightly different. I think it's been fun.
It is kind of neat to get that global perspective. I know I got sort of tossed into that once I joined the Altium team too, even doing simple things like newsletters, and some of the titles I would give things could even translate into something really either wonky or offensive. It
Yeah.
just, and so I had to learn to become more globally minded and aware
Yeah.
of, and adopt some of those things, right? And hopefully the other way around. So it is a wonderful experience.
Well, like you say, the quirky thing too. I just got to share this. There's one guy over there in France that even I like asked a question about something. I don't even remember what it was, but his response was just simply KO. And I was like looking at that email, as simple as it was, and I'm like, did he misspell okay, or how does that work? And so one of the other guys in the French team had to explain to me that that's kind of like not okay. So I've never actually heard that before. Maybe I'm the only one in the world that hasn't, but yeah, it's been kind of fun just learning the culture and the differences between us on this side of the ocean and everybody else.
And again, how have these helped you sort of get everybody on the same page? Most people don't want to do data management or PLM because they don't want to change or migrate or do it different, because you sort of get in your row and this works and you don't want to be taken off task. So I'm just wondering, you've brought a broad body of people together from multiple countries. Like, how's that working for you?
It's working. It's getting better every day, I got to say, and we are actually kind of converging the way that we're doing things as we go. We've got defined out jobs that everybody's using. So now, regardless of who it is that we're talking to, anybody, regardless of where they're at, I feel like they're sitting right next to me. I could be talking to a designer and reviewing their work, and because of the environment where we can Zoom and talk to each other, share screens, whatever we have to do, we can put notes into your Altium commentary. I can even change it for them, and actually show them the reroute option, and we can discuss it, and then they can check it out and do the same thing. So we've got the same out jobs. So like when you hit prepare the documents, it's going to punch out the same stuff. So it's really kind of forcing us to be really common in how we output things. And even with the materials management crew yesterday, we explained that, hey, you can actually go order boards from a designer over on the other side of the ocean if you want, because it's going to look exactly like what we're showing you here. So I think it's been a great experience, and it's been easier than I would have thought. As people, it's mostly about, I would say, the groups. The biggest thing about the groups, and I would recommend to anybody listening, is seeing people's faces and talking to their face in a Zoom meeting or whatever other application you're using is pretty important, to just realize these are people that you're talking to. And it's easy to get frustrated in emails and telephone calls, but when you get on face-to-face meetings like this, you really get to know each other. You really get to gain respect for each other. You learn what each person's strengths are. And so it's just a way to connect within our own company in this way. We needed to connect more. And so that's what's been exciting, is just learning from each other.
Well, again, so fun to learn from you and to watch it. You're really showing us your sort of unedited version of your own transition. It almost sounds too good to be true. My last question on this, Jeremie, and then I want to ask you about the user group experience is, I would like to say that we had some crystal ball and we knew that somehow, tragically, a world pandemic was going to hit. So we spent years making this cloud-based tool. But as you know, it just was fortunate and unfortunate timing. And so when you look at having adopted this at this time and knowing sort of that your team in France was really undone there for a minute, how has this impacted you as far as of it being at this particular time? Just how it's impacted your overall team, the way you work, and then maybe how it's going to affect you when we get to the other side of this awful thing.
Well, I feel pretty fortunate that we happened to be kind of heading down this as I explained just a little bit ago, we were already heading down this path. And so this kind of just forced us to get it going a little bit earlier than we were expecting. So we're really fortunate to have kind of had this. You guys launched at the right time. We happened to be in the right place at the right time, getting to know you and hearing about it, Altium Live, all that. So it's really been a benefit to our team in that we were able to maintain and continue working through these, difficult times, and still, work from home with seamless disruption or not interruption from the design process. So for us, it's actually tried to, I know what am I trying to say? It's a difficult, topic to talk about. There's others that have been impacted more than we have, I think. So I'm really thankful that we happened to switch over at the right time, because it's made it so that that impact of the COVID situation is not as hurtful as it could have been to our company. It allowed us to continue working. And, the Canadians I told you about, they get to jump in and just start working, which they were excited about. So,
yeah, that's great. Well, you're right. It is so many people affected. I share with you gratitude that we've been able to continue to work, but I'm also pleased to hear that your team will continue to work well now. It just sounds like it just sped everything up, which is what I like to call the COVID silver linings, right? Is just, there are blessings, of this terrible season, and to me, this is one of them. And another silver lining is that during this period, and I think because you had met my coworker, David Aboud, you had expressed some interest at Altium Live about wanting to start a users group. So I wanted to share with our listeners, there's different people that have asked me about starting users group, and I don't think they're thinking much about it right now. But you really took a bold step and decided to just jump right in and do it virtually. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to do it, and how that process was for you?
Sure. I think you guys are the ones that kind of guided me through that. I mean, in 2018, at the Altium Live 2018, like you said, David came up to me. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I have a sign on my back that says, "Come and get me to do this." But he comes over and he starts talking about a user group. And I'm like, wow, that sounds interesting. So in the middle of the robot competition, he introduced me to Kelly Wigington as well, who's got a user group in Utah. And so we talked for a little bit about what is this thing and why would we do it. And it sounded pretty awesome and a great idea, a way to basically bring Altium Live's philosophy, what you guys have accomplished down in San Diego, and Germany is also in there, and try to bring it home to a more local application, and try to maybe, bring some of that excitement to Bozeman or Montana and whatever I consider my community. As you found out, we had everybody, including one guy from France who stayed up past midnight to be with us. So thank you, Kevin. And so I think it just sat there for a while, but I ended up getting back to David and being like, so did you really mean it about the user group thing? And he's like, yeah. So that's when he connected me with you. So again, it's just all connections. So that's why I guess I'd say, it's, you guys have kind of pushed me on a personal level to push aside my, an engineer's tendency to be an introvert and just stay in their cube and do their work, and try to step outside the box into a comfort zone, take a little risk, both with your designs and, when you're getting into these groups like this. And so the inspiration was basically to say, okay, this is an opportunity to bring Altium and all the resources you guys provide to my community and share it with my friends, because we know a lot of people around here. This is a pretty tight community. A lot of us come from Montana State University. We graduated there and refused to leave. That's where a lot of our companies probably come from. Also, it tends to be a lot of smaller companies, and so we don't want anybody. It's more difficult if you're just one engineer or two engineers here. You don't have anybody to talk to or bounce an idea off of. And that's one of the biggest things with those weekly meetings that I think, it's another big thing that comes out of those weekly meetings in Lumibird is just bouncing ideas off each other. Does anybody have a design for this that they've tried? That sort of thing. So I think that on a local level with the user group, it just seemed like a no-brainer to start something like that here and introduce them. Anybody who's willing to show up to you, and Ben Jordan in this case came and was, graceful enough to put his neck on the line and just say, ask me anything for about a half an hour. He's a brave man. So I think that was a good experience. I won't say it wasn't perfect, but that's just it. You got to take a risk. Was it fail fast, fail often? That's how you get through and move forward in this world. And so I went into it just knowing there's going to be awkward moments. Didn't know what to expect about a Zoom meeting with 30 people in it. I think that's what we had. You took a picture, so we'll have to count.
I did. I'll throw it in the show notes for you guys that are listening, because I was, again, Montana, it's not, we don't think of that being the tech capital. I didn't know that about the Montana University, that they had a tech focus, so it makes a little more sense now. But I'll send that picture. So when you first reached out to me, you can correct me. We're sort of digesting this in real time here. Mm-hmm. When you first reached out to me, I felt like when you came to me, you're like, okay, I want to start one of those user group things. So like, give me the instruction book and what does Altium want me to do? And then I'm like, no, it's your baby and we just want to feed it. And I think you were like, oh, so do I have that right? Or
I think so, yeah, because I was doing the same thing on that. I was doing exactly that on my side. I'm like, oh, okay. She's saying I need to try to come up with this. I was hoping that you just tell me what to do and I just follow your directions.
Yes, here's the recipe book. Go bake cookies.
It wasn't bad. With your help, we put it together with minimal time. I mean, you guys, you did, even though you said you didn't have step-by-step instructions, but you provided a pretty easy, like, hey, this is going to be easy. Let's just do this. I'll be able to send out an invitation on your behalf, so to speak, so that we can start collecting or at least letting people know. And that's just part of it is getting it out into the community and letting people know that it's going to happen.
Well, I honestly, Jeremie, hope that you will inspire a bunch of people to follow your lead, because we haven't done a really good job, and partly it's just me because of lack of bandwidth. But, Altium user groups, even though they have our name on them, are run by the users, however they want to do in their community, in their city, in their wherever they want to do it. And that saves y'all from any kind of threat that we're going to come in and try to sell you stuff, right? We don't want capitalism to sort of get in the way. We want you guys to get together and do that, to learn, connect, get inspired from each other, because we think that helps you use our tools better, and ultimately, it helps you be more successful, right? And more than us getting our hands in it, we think it's more important that you own it, but we are happy to support. And as Jeremie said, I can't just give him our database. That would be illegal and violate privacy rules. But the way we handled that, and if anybody's interested, you can reach out to me, and I threw my email in the show notes and Jeremie's as well. But I can connect you with other user group leaders, and I can also pull a list of Altium users in your area, and I can reach out to them and say, hey, Jeremie Waller in Montana is going to start a group. If you're interested, respond to him. I put you all on BCC so we don't break any privacy laws, and then those people can connect with you directly, and then you're off to the races. I think your user group was very successful, and we swam those uncharted waters together because I've I've been involved in user group, but never a virtual one. So that's a first. And yeah, 25, 30 people at least on the call. And everyone seemed engaged. Of course, we're all a bit starving for human interaction
Yeah,
right now.
that might be part of it.
And but I think, we are really having extra gratitude for the value of connection right now. But it was a really great turnout.
Yeah, and I think that, anybody that's thinking that, they don't have time for this either, I would, disagree with that philosophy completely. I definitely, I'm a very busy person myself, just like all of us are super busy, but I think it's important to take time for people. In the middle of our hectic schedules, and especially as you're moving up the ladder, or, if you're in management, it's easy to forget to stop and take time for everybody. So, I mean, this user group is a range of all experience levels. We have students that showed up from Montana State University. I hope more show up in the future, all the way to extremely experienced, people on that call that really know what they're talking about. And so it's a great way for students and everybody to get out there and get to know some people and learn some really cool stuff. So that's all. I just, be brave, go out there and try these things. It isn't nearly as painful as it might sound.
Okay, well, thanks again for sharing that, Jeremie. I wanted to encourage our listeners and Altium listeners all around the world to just do it and to reach out to me. I haven't had time to put together a playbook and create a formal program around it, but I've wanted to. I just, like everybody else, just busy and didn't have the bandwidth to do it. But I thought you would be the perfect sort of user group ambassador to say it wasn't that painful. It didn't take me that much time. Altium didn't show up and do a song and dance. Like, we didn't do any of that. So I just thought it'd be like far more authority coming from you than from my mouth.
Well, and I'll second that too. That, to anybody out there, I'm not getting paid by Judy. She's not giving me any money to do this. So
checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail. And if it sounds like a marketing plug at any point, I got to say that just becomes that's coming naturally, only because Altium's been there to help our company succeed in ways we never thought possible, with a software product that's working very well at this point. So it's pretty cool. That's about all I can say. Is it might sound like I'm plugging Altium, but that's only because they're producing something really amazing that's helping us do exciting things. So.
Well, Jeremie, you are you're a natural leader, and we so appreciate you. We appreciate your work personally, your leadership within your company. You are. Thank you for coming to Altium Live and connecting with us, and for carrying that spirit. As I often say, you guys are the champions. We give you some tools, but the tools don't mean anything without sharp engineers to use them to do wonderful things. So we're a fan. We've recruited you into the Altium Ambassador Army now, whether you wanted to or not. So thank you, and I hope you've inspired some of our listeners to think about doing the same. So
good. I hope so.
Well, thanks for joining me today. For our listeners, thank you for listening in on this conversation with myself and Jeremie Waller, who's the Senior Electrical Engineer at Quantel USA Lumibird. So I will put some resources for you down in the show notes. Take a look when you can, and we will see you next time. Please remember, it helps us so much if you give us, if you subscribe. That's really great, because then we know you're out there, you're listening and enjoying the content, or comment. And please connect with Jeremie and I on LinkedIn. I'll put those links below, and we look forward to being with you next time at this home edition of the OnTrack podcast. Be healthy, stay well, and always remember to stay on track.